Huh. Yeah, let's see. Why can't I see myself? Camera's not working for some reason. So low. There we are. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, can you see me now? We're using some new technology here, so we don't know what's going to happen today. Anything could happen. How's the sound and video for you YouTubers? Everything good? I know we're looking good over on locals. All right. Good. All right, we've got Rumble up and working. Looks like YouTube is up and working. I don't know yet if we have Twitter up and working. We're going to check it. We're doing new technology today. We're using the Rumble Studio to get to multiple platforms. And let me just do a quick check to make sure we're live on X. There we are. We'll all be damned. So we're live on X, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Rumble, we're live on Locals. We get comments from everywhere except X. I guess X doesn't feed the comments. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you like this to start in the normal way so you'll feel like everything is the way you want it to be? Yeah, you do. Watch this. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Scott Adams. It's the highlight of human civilization. And are you glad you're here? Now, let me tell you, if you'd like to take this experience up to levels that nobody could even imagine, all you need is a cup or mug or glass of take or chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything great. It's called the simultaneous sip of Adams. Now go. Oh, that's good. Oh, so good. All right. I'm just going to look at the comments here for a moment to see if there's anything that's problematic. It doesn't seem to be. Make sure we're current. There we go. Wow, I love this new technology. It's working great. So I've got separate comments on the Locals platform. They're going to see a little extra before and after the live stream. I just love this. Everything's working. I really wasn't expecting this. I was almost sure that today would be just a flaming disaster. But look at this. Look at us. Look at us working perfectly. All right. Well, we'll talk about all the stories, including aliens in Miami. We'll get to that. There's a physicist who's got some new thinking tying together quantum and regular physics. His name is Piotr Oganowski. And I want to just read you this one part of his new technique in which he's trying to understand reality itself. That's right, reality itself. And he says this: if the method I have developed turns out to be the right one, that we have been looking for 100 years, it also means that the entire, listen to this next part, the entire world around us is just a constantly waving field, and space-time itself is only a way of perceiving this field. Does that make any sense to any of you? How many of you know what a field is in physics? I spent a lot of time yesterday talking to AI, ChatGPT, trying to figure out what do they really mean when they say a field? Because a field doesn't have mass or energy. It's just sort of a way to describe a set of probabilities, I guess, in the real world. That's how I like to conceive of it, but that's not exactly right. But here's something I wrote in the 90s, in the Dilbert future in the 90s. I speculated that what if nothing moves? What if our reality is static and nothing ever moves? The only thing that moves is your consciousness moving through almost a solid. But the solid contains every possibility. So if you take a left, your arm is a little higher. If you take a right, your arm is a little lower. But basically, your consciousness would be weaving through a four-dimensional cube. So that's the way I imagined reality, sort of like a flip book, where you flip the pages and you can see a little static cartoon moving. So it would seem to us like the cartoon is moving, but all we're doing is flipping through the pages of reality with our consciousness. I like to think about things like that. All right, well, just put that out there. Brian Romelli has a term I like to adopt for your own personal AI that will be the one that's your, what he calls a intelligence amplifier. I like this a lot, and the reason is, if you say there's artificial intelligence, and then there's also humans, then you say to yourself, oh no, it's us against them, because we're so built for us against them stuff. It just turns into Terminator, and the AI is going to be our enemy. The AI is going to take our jobs. But with Brian's formulation as an intelligence amplifier, now it makes sense, doesn't it? Now you say, oh, give me some of that AI, it'll make me smarter. It's not your competitor, although it might be that too. But I do like the idea of having your own personal AI that nobody can pollute or control. And then you feed it everything it needs to know about you and whatever skills you need it to know specifically. And it can interact with the larger AIs in the world, but it would also be like a bubble wrap to protect you from those other AIs. So that does seem the way the world is going. So I think you'll have your own personal intelligence amplifier, and one of its main uses would be to protect you from the AI that's, not your personal one. Does that make sense? I feel like that's what it's going to look like. I think Brian's right. Well, I saw the most vicious X-platform dunk today, but it's kind of subtle. Yeah, you have to know a little bit of the context for this to be as funny as I thought it was. I think I laughed for about 10 minutes after I saw this. All right. So you probably know that the news cycle for the last several days, if you follow politics, has been one viral video after another of Vivek Ramaswamy just obliterating some kind of news reporter. And so you see just one after another, and there's another one today of him just, destroying this NBC reporter. Now, you have to know the context that Vivek is being really singled out by literally everybody as unusually gifted in his communication and his speaking. So if you didn't know that, it's not as funny to know that he's really being singled out as like the best communicator of our age, really. And you have to know that he's running against Nikki Haley, and he often has some words for her. But Nikki Haley posted today on the X platform, "We have to deal with the cancer that is mental health." That's who Vivek is competing with. Yesterday there's a viral video of Vivek getting a question from an atheist at one of his town hall kind of meetings in Iowa, and Vivek goes on this detailed and yet simplified explanation, so it was easy to follow, about the founders of the country. He's like, well, Thomas Paine was an atheist, and he did this, and of course, my favorite was Thomas Jefferson, who was a deist, and yes, the other founders were Christians, but he gives you this entire completely useful context, and then gives a completely elegant explanation of how he's going to separate what he believes about God from what he believes about the Constitution, and his job is to follow the Constitution as president. Now, it was the most elegant, perfect, spontaneous, no notes, no ums, no pauses, just, display of sheer brilliance that makes you think, oh, maybe America can do okay. Maybe we're not doomed. And then Nikki Haley posts, we have to deal with a cancer that is mental health. But that's not the best part. That's not the best part. Apparently, Vivek has been accusing Nikki Haley of, having other people post her social media. So after she posts this, Vivek just reposts it, and he comments. He says, "I think she might have actually written this one herself." I can't think of anything more vicious than attributing what somebody said to them. That was his insult. His insult was attributing her actual words to her. Yeah, I think she actually said this. Oh, that made me laugh for so long this morning. Anyway, let's talk about Epstein Island. We're all like digging through those turds trying to find some gold. And, Epstein Island is mostly just turds, but we're pretty sure there's some gold in there, right? It's like, if I just dig through the turds long enough, I'm going to find a story. So here's the best we got today. I guess the new dump of Epstein documents that have been disclosed. Bill Clinton apparently went to the offices of Vanity Fair and somewhat threatened them to not write an article about his good friend Epstein. Do you think that really happened? I don't know. I don't know if I believe anything. It sounds possible. Yeah, I mean, it sounds in the realm of something that's possible, but it's in the news, so I don't believe much of what's in the news when it's a story like that. Somebody went into an office and said this or that. I feel like those stories are usually at least misleading or out of context or something. But all right, that was the best we got. Since we already knew Clinton was a friend of Epstein, I don't know. Does that really tell you something new? A friend, sticking up for a friend? I don't know. So there's not much going on in the Epstein story, except a lot of fake stories about it. Well, the FDA is set to approve Florida to buy Canadian pharma drugs at much lower prices. Does that sound like a good idea? So Canada has similar drugs to what we have, but they're much lower prices. So the idea is we'll just buy them from Canada. Does anybody have an economics degree who's watching this? This whole thing is because people don't understand how anything works, isn't it? Isn't there something terribly wrong with the whole story? It's like, are you not understanding how anything works? Let me explain how everything works. The day that Florida is allowed to buy pharmaceuticals from Canada, the pharmaceutical company probably is going to raise the price to American prices. And they're going to say, Canada, if you want to continue getting these low prices, you're going to have to ban sales to America. How's that not going to happen? So Canada is going to wake up and find out they can't buy drugs anymore unless they buy it at American prices. So do you think in the long run, Florida is going to get lower prices? You would have to know nothing about economics or business to assume this could work in the long run. In the short run, probably yes. Probably they could buy some drugs before Canada gets their act together. But the moment Canada adjusts to the new reality, they're going to want to get lower prices. So they're going to say to the pharma company, okay, we'll pass a law that we don't give any of this stuff to the United States. How could this possibly go any other way? Can anybody give me an idea of how this could go any other way? Now, I would love for it to work, but it doesn't make sense on paper. Am I the only one seeing this? Anybody agree? Do you agree that it doesn't make sense on paper? That it couldn't possibly work in the long run? It was worth testing. You know, if it were me, I'd try it. So I think DeSantis has the right instinct. Yeah, let's see what happens. You know, maybe they can adjust. Maybe it works. Who knows? All right. But the complaints are that Canada would run out of drugs because there's not enough of them. Not enough of them. Wouldn't Big Pharma want to sell them more drugs? Like, why would they run out? Like, none of it makes sense in any economic business context. It's like the story is just stupid or something. I don't know. But good luck with that. Well, you know, Iceland has this big problem with volcanoes, especially lately. But apparently, on the plus side, they've figured out that if they dig down all the way into the magma core, that they can create some power with the heat differentials because it's so hot. I don't think they're making a Stirling engine, but somehow they can turn it into power. Sorry. Now, what's interesting about this, in my opinion, is I have long speculated that the most important technology for the future is hole digging holes. Right. And I think there's something like the Musk's company, the boring company that makes tunnels. I think digging into the earth and doing it better and more efficiently and, you know, drilling holes and digging tunnels, I think is it sounds like a boring kind of field, but we have unlimited energy under the ground. If you had the way to just dig a hole deeply enough, you have unlimited energy. So it seems to me that it was always sort of an obvious way to go to just improve our hole digging technology. And that looks like what Iceland is trying to do. So I don't believe that it's a current technology that's going to dig into this Kalefla magma testbed situation, but they think they can do it. So that would be amazing. Keep an eye on that. Holes are the big next tech. All right, I saw a suggestion from X-user George Mack, who says that the X platform should have what he calls a Steelman button. A Steelman is the best form of an argument on one side. That would be the steel man, as opposed to a straw man, which is trying to say your opponent's argument in the weakest way so that you can debunk it. Now, the idea is that since Grok can see all of the arguments on social media, that you could ask Grok, if you saw a post, you could ask Grok to give you the pro and the cons of the best arguments for the point that's in the tweet or the post. What do you think of that? Would you like the option of surfacing, using AI to surface the best arguments on both sides? I freaking love it. You know, does this sound like something I've been suggesting for a long time? Now, I was suggesting it before AI was practical. So I was suggesting that there should be a way for, if anybody makes a point on some, let's say, political or scientific topic or social, that other people could just add their arguments in the comments, but other people could vote up the best of the pro and the cons. So it would be up to the public to decide what's the best alternative argument that's convincing to them. But I think AI might be the better way to go. And here's the good news. Elon Musk posted that they're already working on it. They're already working on it. Yeah, that's true. Reddit would be almost what that is. Yes, it would be a Reddit kind of a model. But apparently Musk is looking at using Grok, their AI, to surface the best arguments. Now, like everything, one assumes that what you're going to be looking at is unexpected problems. Don't you think? There's going to be massive unexpected problems. So I don't know what those be, but it's worth a shot. I think that's absolutely a productive thing to do. So good for Musk. All right, so Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis had their town halls separately, one after another on CNN. And here's what Haley says about Trump and why you should pick somebody who's not Trump. She says that chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray, blah, 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 chaos. Who's the person who says that Trump brings chaos? Where does that come from? Am I wrong that is literally the Democrat attack? Don't the Democrats literally say chaos is the reason you don't want Trump? They use that actual word. Why is she using the Democrat word to attack Trump? Because people are accusing her of being a uniparty, half Democrat candidate anyway. It's kind of weird that she would use the exact argument from the Democrats. This seems like an odd choice and not a good one because it's not a good look. So there's that. And then Nikki Haley says that Trump and Ron and all of them have said, let's leave Ukraine. So she's more of a support NATO, support Ukraine kind of a candidate, which also sounds like a Democrat a little bit to me. So the two things that sort of stood out and got called out, in the press were two things that look kind of Democrat, which of course is why they highlighted them. Yeah. And so that's interesting. And then DeSantis, I don't know how DeSantis could be more boring. He might be a great president, by the way. I have a very positive feeling about DeSantis as a governor, and I would imagine it would cross over to the presidency. I think he'd be very capable. But here's what he said. He introduced his new idea of a flat tax. Come on. Come on. Come on. Flat tax. Flat tax is what you say when you want to sound like a Republican, but it'll never happen. Do you know what is the least likely thing that would ever happen in the United States? A flat tax. There's nothing less likely than that. Nothing. So why is he even bothering? It's just so as to have something to say. It is so boring that the best thing he could come up with is the oldest thing that Republicans say that has never had a chance of being any kind of a policy or law. Right? Now, you know why a flat tax is popular but ridiculous, right? Has anybody ever explained that to you? You know why you're not ever going to get it? Let me explain. Let me explain the flat tax. The funny thing about a flat tax is everybody believes that they would pay less taxes. Everybody believes that a flat tax would mean that they personally paid less taxes. Because whenever anybody talks about the flat tax, they pick a number that's lower than what most people pay in taxes, at least most voters, not most people, but most voters. So it always sounds good. It's like that good political thing to say, but it's ridiculous. There isn't the slightest chance that we're going to take our taxes that are high on the rich and low on the poor and reverse it so that everybody's paying about the same. There isn't any chance. Why would he even bring that up? That is the most ridiculous thing to bring up. You might as well say, I'm going to issue everybody wings so you can fly around and you don't need a car. It sounds exactly the same. No, there's no practical way that a flat tax will ever happen. Absurd. And by the way, I would love it. Do you know why I would love a flat tax? Because just like the rest of you, I think I would pay less taxes. At a time when our debt is out of control, you think they're going to flat tax you and have a lower rate for everybody? No, that's not going to happen. All right, here's a fact check. This bothered me a little bit, but the problem might be on my end. So I want you to tell me if the problem is on my end, or did DeSantis get something wrong? When DeSantis was describing the risk of fentanyl, which he takes very seriously, which I appreciate. He said, as an example, he said that one of the risks would be a student wants to take a pill to stay awake, to study, and, which would be illegal, but they don't realize it has fentanyl in it, so they take the pill and they die. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that example? Student wants to stay awake to study, so they take a pill that, unbeknownst to them, has fentanyl in it, and then they die of an overdose. What's wrong with that example? Not that it's anecdotal. No. Well, okay, I'm not sure I'm right, but let me suggest this. If you're a student who wants to stay awake, you're looking for an upper, something like a speed or an Adderall or, some meth-related upper. You would know that if you were asking for an upper, that whoever was offering it knew they were offering uppers. I think it would be very rare that somebody tried to sell you an upper, but they snuck you a downer, because that's what the fentanyl would be. So fentanyl would be a replacement for a party drug. Fentanyl would never, ever be in a drug that was helping you study, because it doesn't do that. So while it's true in general that we don't know what's in each pill, I think the risk that the governor pointed out is maybe one that possibly has never happened. Could happen, but it's probably so rare that it would be closer to never. Because even the dealer would know what they have. The dealer isn't going to try to sell you opioid and tell you it's speed. I don't think that happens a lot. Because you can usually find the dealer. Even the criminal has some kind of, business acumen. They know they have to sell you something in the general category of what you thought you were buying if they want a repeat customer. So anyway, I don't want to make that a big point. I was just curious if that is a thing that anybody's ever heard of. I've never heard of it. I've never heard of anybody dying because they thought they were going to get a study pill and they got fentanyl instead. But I've heard of it in a party context. Anyway, the only reason I bring that up is I think the more our politicians understand about the drug, the better they will be equipped to do something productive. And I thought that showed maybe a little bit lack of understanding of how it all works. All right, another fun story is I told you that Mark Cuban is weighing in on the X platform in favor of DEI, and he's debated with Musk on the platform, and he believes that if you try really hard, you can find all these golden diamonds of minority people who have been overlooked by discrimination, and it would behoove a company to try a little harder to find those minority hires that would add more than the average. They would be even better than the average person that they hire. And by average, I mean white. So that's Mark's point of view. Now, my point of view is that he couldn't possibly believe what he's saying because he's too smart. Basically, he's presenting an argument that only dumb people present. And I think he knows it because he's smart. So I'm starting with the assumption that Mark Cuban is unusually capable and smart, and he couldn't possibly believe what he's saying. It's the sort of thing you say like the flat tax, right? The flat tax is something that it's basically just something politicians say. It couldn't possibly happen. And I think that when Cuban sells his basketball team, which I haven't heard a reason for it yet, maybe he said, but I haven't heard one. And then he also comes out publicly in favor of DEI, a core Democrat political point. It feels like he's the candidate under glass, as if he's just going to be available until the last minute in case you need him. Now, if I had to guess, I can't read his mind. He might be thinking he doesn't want to run and doesn't want to be president. But he might also be thinking, and he would be correct, because why? He's very smart, right? As soon as you say he's dumb, nothing makes sense. Like the whole thing, nothing makes sense. assume he's smart and then build your worldview from that, because that's going to be a better base, right? If he's smart, he wouldn't run because he'd be running against Biden, and that'd be a bad look. But he would simply raise his political profile, put his business in order where it'd be easier to be a public figure, because it'd be hard to be a public figure and own a basketball team. I don't think you couldn't do it. It would be a mess because the fans, you'd lose half of your fans. It'd just be a mess. So it looks suspiciously like Mark is preparing himself to be pressed into service at the last minute against his will. As in, well, I didn't want to run for president, but let's say Gavin Newsom had some scandal, just speculating, and Biden had to drop out for one reason or another. Who could be ready on such short notice? Well, who just sold his basketball team and has a little tough hands might be a candidate, maybe. So might say he doesn't believe what he's saying, but it's good politics to say it. Bill Ackman, funding to and as you know, Bill Ackman was the one who was pressing the hardest to get Claudine Gay Mark with Chris Rufo. He said to Mark Cuban about DEI when Mark said how valuable DEI was. So Ackman says, that's exactly what I thought until I did the work. I encourage you to do the same and revert. DEI is not about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Trust me, I fell for the same trap you did, Bill. How much are you loving Bill Ackman? Keep in mind, Bill Ackman is a Democrat. Like, if you want to give him extra credit, Bill Ackman did this as a Democrat. This is pure public service. To me, it looks like. To me, this is Bill Ackman just giving something to the country because he thought he could. It looks like the classic situation where he didn't wake up and say, I want to do this. I don't think he woke up and said, oh, this is the first choice of things I want to do, try to get rid of a Harvard president. I think he thought he was maybe one of the few people who could make it happen. He simply had the ability. So he took his ability and he applied it to the benefit, in my opinion, of the country. And he's doing it again by showing the counterpoint to Mark Cuban's point of view. And I could not respect this more. I mean, this is very clearly independent of party loyalties. And it does seem like it is entirely based on what's good for the country. I just don't see any other motive. So that's your dad energy right there. That is pure dad energy. So good for you. Then Elon Musk replied to Mark Cuban, so we get all our billionaires in on the act here. And so when Mark Cuban said, DEI is so good for the company, Elon Musk said, cool. So when should we expect to see a short white or Asian woman on the Mavericks? Now, he might be a little behind and not know that Cuban is selling the Mavericks, although I think he might be staying associated with them in some way. I don't know the details. So, yeah, how do you answer that? I think what Cuban said was, if you look at the entire organization, it's actually, it's more diverse. Now, is that making it better or making it worse? Let me think. Almost all the players are black, but if you include the executives, it's really quite diverse. I'm not sure that's the point you wanted to make, Mark, because it sounds to me like the executives are mostly not black and the players are mostly black, which would sound exactly like a problem, not a solution. Just saying. Now, Mike Benz weighs in and shows two pictures next to each other on X. One picture is a picture of his basketball team players who are, that look like, I don't know, 90% black, I couldn't tell. And then it was next to it was a picture of the executives of this new healthcare company who are, let's say, much less black. But to be fair to Mark Cuban, if you were to add his basketball team to his healthcare company and looked at it as an average, very diverse. That's right. So, slap right back at you. I call it pocket diversity. As long as anywhere else is a different color, I'm diverse. You know, sitting here doing this live stream, you're probably saying to yourself, I've seen nothing but a white man since I started watching. But what you don't know is if you walk out the door, around the corner, through a gated community, and up 4 houses, you would find that I have a black neighbor. So if you count the entire neighborhood, which is mostly just that one house plus me, that would be diverse on average. So that's sort of Mark Cuban diversity I got going here. So that's funny. Then Christopher Rufo weighed in on the Mark Cuban DEI opinion. He says, Mark Cuban needs to think beyond euphemisms. His support of DEI is like hearing about re-education camps and thinking, great idea. I support education and I love camping. Read your Orwell, he says. Now that's a good take. He likes DEI because he likes diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Rufo says, that's like saying you like education camps, re-education camps, because you like education and you love camping. So those are 2 good things. No more Democrats and no more Republicans. Well, I don't buy that framing. I see what you're saying. You know, I understand the point that there's no more Democrats and no more Republicans because they all want war. I get that. But that's not reality. I mean, war is the one place where they do act the same in a lot of ways. But there's more to war than in the world. Not much, but there's more. So I asked the following question on X in a poll. I said, who has lost more jobs because of racism? And I gave people 4 choices. Claudine Gay, Scott Adams, Abraham Lincoln, and Derek Chauvin. Now, who do you think won? I'm happy to say that I won. And that is the correct answer. I lost the most jobs. So Claudine Gay lost 1 job. Derek Chauvin lost 1 job. And Abraham Lincoln, well, he lost 1 job. I lost 4. And I'm probably not done. I'm sure I've got at least 1 more to lose. I lost 2 corporate careers because I was a white male. If you're new to my content, they did tell me directly. That's why I became a cartoonist, because my corporate career couldn't go anywhere because I was a white male. And again, I'll tell you, both in the bank that I worked in, and then when I left because they told me that, and went to the phone company, they told me that directly. In direct words, we can't promote you because you're white and male. So that's when I became a cartoonist. You may have heard that I recently got canceled for saying that other people might not like me. I did not say that I didn't like other people. You may have heard it that way, but nothing like that happened. I said, according to the polls and everything I see in the news, there might be people who don't like me, and I would like to stay away from people who don't like me. And I got canceled for that. Do you think a black man would have been canceled for saying, maybe I should stay away from people who are racist? Of course not. Because everybody thinks that's a completely rational thing to say. Why would you want to spend time with people who don't like you? The most obvious thing in the world is you should put some distance. So I lost my cartooning career, or at least the way it used to run. I'm still doing it, of course. I also lost my TV show because UPN, where the show ran, decided that Monday, where my show was, would be a black content only. So once you lose your time slot, usually you're kind of screwed, and that's what happened. So I've lost 4 careers directly for being a white male and making content that's about more white males than anything else. Now, can anybody beat that? Do you know any black person in America who has ever lost 4 jobs for being black? Have you ever heard of that? I've never heard of it. I think I'm the winner. I'm the most racially and gender discriminated person in America. Would you disagree? Find somebody who can top my story. 4 careers, 4 high-end careers, plus publishing. I also lost my, so 5. If you count my book writing career, which is kind of separate, that's 5 careers. What about my speaking career? I lost my speaking career. Why? Because I supported Trump. Was that because people said, oh, so you seem kind of Republican, so we don't want you to be a speaker? No, it's because they said I was a racist, because I was white. Right. If I'd been, I imagine, black, it wouldn't have made much difference. So that's 5 careers: TV, speaking, cartooning, banking, and the phone company. Each of those directly because of my color and my gender. How many of you were aware of that? Now, I couldn't even talk about this until the last few years, until Trump, really. I couldn't even talk about it. Do you know why? Because if I talked about how much discrimination I had experienced, do you know what people would say? Oh, you big fucking baby. Oh, yeah, because you're so discriminated against in the United States as a white man. It must be tough. It must be tough to be a white man. Have I ever said that? Did you ever hear me say it's tough to be a white man? I don't say that. You know why? Because you can figure it out. Right. No, I'm more focused on figuring it out. I'll figure it out. I figured it out those other times. I'm still figuring it out. There's still plenty of things you can do. It's not like you're going to die if you get some discrimination. But it's context. I think it's important to know. And not everybody gets to go become a cartoonist if they can't get hired. You saw the statistics that the year after George Floyd, there was a whole bunch of hiring in the country, and only 6% of corporate jobs went to white people. 6%. Everything else went to people of color and women, I guess. All right. So Seth Abramson, famous for being a Democrat, who is very Democrat, he thinks that Chris Rufo, if Chris Rufo turned out to be a foreign agent linked to the Kremlin and allies, it would be the least surprising thing that's happened. So Christopher Rufo, who is putting his reputation and his life into the mission of making sure that the United States focuses on merit and accomplishment over racial identity. And Seth Abramson thinks that focusing on merit is destroying the country. How does that work? So do we think that Putin is trying to destroy America by making us more capable? So Putin wants us to focus on merit through Christopher Rufo? Is that what Seth? Now, I've said it before, but I like when there's new examples. This is playing like comedy now. How can I treat this as a serious opinion? It's a serious opinion that favoring merit over racial identity must be a Russian plot to destroy the United States. You don't even have to add anything to it. You can simply describe it the way it was described, and you laugh. It's funny in a way that you just shake your head. It's like, oh my God, what's wrong with this guy? The funny part also is that he probably does that to me. Like, I'm sure Seth Abramson has looked at my content or people like me and shook his head and said, oh, my God. I mean, actually, he's doing it with Christopher Rufo. He's like, oh, my God. How could he want merit? How could he want the Constitution of the United States to mean something? How could he? Well, here's our latest on immigration. The 2023 number of illegal aliens is 10 times the 2017 rate. Do you know what we were talking about in 2017? Do you remember? In 2017, we were saying we have an emergency at the border because there are so many illegals coming across. In 2017, it was such an emergency that Trump largely got elected on the promise of stopping it. It's now 10 times the level of when it was an emergency. 10 times. Now, I think I saw Elon Musk say this, and I was a little hesitant to agree, but I'm going to go fully into agreement at this point. This is clearly intentional. There's no fucking way this is a mistake. Can we say that as clearly as possible? There's no fucking way this is anything but an attempt to destroy the country. Now, you might say, no, Scott, it's an attempt to change the voting characteristic of the country so the Democrats get an advantage. No, I'm sorry. No. Maybe at the 2017 level, that was an argument. Because it wasn't going to destroy the country at that level, in my opinion, but it might have changed over time and changed the voting, mix. But at the 2023 level, and even 2022, this is the end of the country. This is not the same. This is clearly whoever's in charge of our country is not us. Can we agree on that? I'm going to say it as directly as I can. There's no fucking way an American is in charge of this. There's no fucking way an American is in charge of anything about immigration. Wherever this is coming from, we can rule out America. Might be coming from the cartels. Maybe Russia's doing something clever I don't know about. Maybe China's doing something I don't know about. But it's definitely not fucking coming from an American. It's not coming from Joe Biden's opinion about how the world should be. It is not. Biden's not in charge. Mayorkas is clearly not in charge. Somebody's in charge, and we better figure out who it is. We better figure out who it is really fast. In the comments, somebody says Jews. Really? I'm going to nominate you for the dumbest fucking comment of the day. You think the Jews want open immigration to bring in as many people who hate the Jews as possible? Could you come up with a worse opinion than that? That's absurd. Yeah, there are many people of all types who might favor, being loose with immigration, but there's no fucking person who wanted 3 million illegal people to come in 1 year. You show me one person who's in favor of that, who's actually an American and not crazy. You can't. Show me an elected politician who thinks 3 million was a good number. No, you can't. So we do have an emergency, I think, to get a president who is at least American, right? Now, I don't know what the deal is with Joe Biden. I don't know what the deal is. But he doesn't operate like an American. And that seems like the most basic thing you do as a president of the United States is be identifiable as vaguely American, somewhat American. He's not doing that. He barely can make, a mirror. He can barely fog a mirror at this point. It would have been funnier if I could have said that clearly the first time. But Yeah, we need to figure out who's in charge. And it's definitely not an American. In fact, I think that that should be a Republican talking point. They should say, there's no way an American is in favor of this. So let's figure out who's running shit. And we better figure it out fast. There is no way an American is behind this policy. There is no way. No way. There's not a little bit of chance. There's no chance an American is behind this. All right. There's a report that says the average IQ of college students has been dropping to the point where the average IQ of a college graduate or a student is the same as the IQ of people who did not go to college. Does that surprise you? That the average IQ of college people is now the same as non-college people. No, of course it doesn't surprise you. It's exactly what it looks like. Now, part of it is that more people get to go to college, right? So it used to be that the elite could go to college. Now almost everybody can, at least at community college. So if you throw in the community college people, you know, the community college is the average person in America. So of course, it should be around average. Now, I know you're going to say that the diversity quotas have driven down the average IQ, and that is unkind and racist. It's true, because if, you know, based on math, so it has nothing to do with the IQ of the people that they're bringing in. That's not the point. The point is, if you try too hard to bring in any group, you know, small pool of people, you'll run out of the smartest ones before you run out of the need to get more of them. So in theory, just because too many people chasing too small a pool of people should make you get a lower candidate eventually, which has nothing to do with the genetics or capability of any people. It's just math. You could reverse all the races and it would be the same phenomenon if you were shopping in a limited pool. All right. Let's talk about aliens. So this David Grush, he's the whistleblower who says we got at least 10 aliens and crashed spacecrafts, and oh man, we got so much alien stuff. We got the biologics, we got the pilots, we got the spacecrafts all over the place. Totally real, right? That's totally real. I don't think any of it's real. How many of you think that there are creatures, whether or not they're aliens, they could be always have been here or spiritual or something. How many of you think there are non-human advanced entities flying around the earth? Okay. We do have a few yeses. I'm going to go with a hard no on that. I'd love to be wrong, but hard no. And there's going to be a top secret closed door meeting with the House Oversight Committee. And we just love our aliens. Now, a related story. Did you hear the story about the Miami Mall? So something happened yesterday, I think it was, in Miami. So one story is that there were some teens who got in a stick fight, and there were reports that maybe there was a shooter or something, and there was a massive police response. Now that would be the ordinary story. There was some trouble at a mall, police came. But if you see the aerial photos of the event, I guess they had some kind of helicopter or drone photos, then the size of the police response looks bigger than anything I've ever seen in my life. Like such a police response that it looked out of place. Next, there were reports that there were 10-foot tall aliens who were shadowy and walking around, and maybe somebody shot at them. Right. So now, next, we have a lack of smartphone videos from whatever would have been a normal disturbance. So if there had been a stick fight and it was teenagers, by now we would already see posts of the videos that somebody else took of the stick fight. But we haven't. So people are putting together these clues and saying, wait a minute, we haven't seen confirmation that it was an ordinary event. The police presence was wildly, gigantic. And somebody thinks that they have a grainy video of a shadowy figure walking through the police cars or something, but I couldn't see it when I looked at it. So I don't believe that it's aliens. I'm just telling you that it's a story in the news. But I wouldn't wait for any aliens. Yeah. What I would wait for is, why are we not being told what actually is happening? There's clearly something missing in the story, but maybe we'll find out today. Maybe it's illegal aliens, you say. It's New Year's, and that's why the cops, it didn't happen on New Year's evening, did it? I don't know. We got questions. And there were lost power, and there were helicopters, and all that stuff. Michael Schellenberger has gone all in on the idea that Epstein was a sex blackmail operation. How many of you would say that's obvious at this point? Do you think we have sufficient credible information that to say Epstein was part of a government-related, we don't know which one. People say Mossad, but might be more than one, might be just one other, you don't know. But we can say that for sure now, can't we? Yeah, I feel like that's established, sufficiently established. Looks like the comments died on YouTube, so I don't know if anybody's still watching me on this one. Anybody still watching on this feed? On YouTube or Rumble? Because the comments stopped 5 minutes ago. All right, so I actually don't know if I'm still doing a stream. I might be live and I might not be. There's no indication. It says live. I'm gonna act like it's live. But I see something blinking like it's an error. Maybe it's not. All right. So it's kind of a weird, slow news day. We had such a good beginning of the week that there wasn't much else to say. So that, ladies and gentlemen, comes the conclusion of the best live stream you've ever seen. I remind you that if you don't have a copy of my book, Reframe Your Brain. Oh, it's different on the two platforms. All right, so I'm pointing to it. Depending on what platform you're looking at, you can see it with a different finger. So the reviews are the best reviews I've ever gotten for a book. They're crazy. And people are telling me it's changing their lives. It's a very easy book to read and learn some reframes, and it'll change your life as well. So pick that up if you don't have it. And I'm going to say, thanks for joining if you're still here on Rumble and X and on YouTube, but I don't know if you are because your comments stopped. But, oh wait, there's another thing I can click on. Let me see what happens if I do that. No, that doesn't tell me anything. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for now. And I'm going to say bye for this other platform.